Uh, Greetings, YouTubers and live videoers. It's me, Women29, and I thought I'd come on and give some comments on Jesus in our early Christianity study. And I'm still learning about all the Jewish politics, and I apologize for bungling up the last Jewish video that I did. I'm still very unfamiliar with the names of certain groups and what exactly was going on. However, what I'm going to do with this one is direct you to some really good resources. S. Madewell and his site, Yeshua Quest, has pretty much all the headings that we would be looking for. And this video is assuming Christ existed for the sake of argument, and how it all goes together. And just leaving some comments. One of the interesting things about this whole thing, S. Madewell has laid out a timeline matching up to third-party sources, Romans, and Chinese astronomical calendars, talking about Halley's Comet and different things. And he places the birth of Christ in 10 BCE and the crucifixion based on the text where the Apostle Paul discusses his being a part of Jerusalem and the like, when he left, when he comes back, in Galatians, which is a more reliable text than some of the other sources. So, based on all that, I'll post a link to it. He's come to the conclusion that it was 27 AD that Christ ended up being crucified. And also, along with a lot of the other issues that people ask, Christ, the person, what he thought, who was he influenced by, where did his teachings come from in the Jewish culture, who were the main teachers around at the time, can all be found in the forum there at Yeshua Quest. Yeshua is the Hebrew name of Jesus. So, for those who don't know, don't get freaked out. It's not some mystical kind of thing. And he has some links to some very educational material there and some very good sources from a Jewish perspective. One of the things that I found interesting is, especially when you start reading the Gospels, is the genealogy. Especially in Matthew and Luke, where people just get bored with that and they say, genealogies don't match up, 14 generations, blah, blah, blah. Some of them I don't understand, I'm not going to read it. But, however, if back in the early Christian ideas of it, and Jewish ideas of it, people memorized text a lot more than they do today. And they knew the Jewish text like the back of their hand. And so seeing the genealogy would be kind of like a historical recap of the Old Testament, and that Jesus would be the genesis of the New Testament and the topic. And it's in these texts that things were changed, things were manipulated, because some people wanted Jesus totally God, some people wanted Jesus totally man, and some people wanted Jesus to be both man and God. So it's really interesting how after the resurrection, Jesus appears. Thomas physically, says he physically sticks his hands into the wounds of Jesus, which shows that Christ was fully human at that appearance. Then he disappears. So, which means he was spirit too, which is quite interesting. Another way that they tried to prove that Christ was fully human is where he feels agony in the garden and sweats great drops of blood. There's plenty of debate around when these texts were written, and so the accounts of Christ are somewhat jumbled. And if you can take the stack of mixed up cards and put them back in order to the way they were supposed to be, you can almost get a picture of how it went down. And there's been many theories on which gospel was created first. We do know that Paul's gospel is probably one of the earliest gospels. Not gospel, but Paul's writings. There's a debate on whether it was the text of Luke, being that it has older forms of Greek, and maybe Mark used Luke's text to write his gospel. Then there's others on the other side who have say that Mark is called the Markian priority and the Lucian priority. Mark was used by Matthew and Luke, and both arguments have some really good texts and examples to back up either side. So the synoptic problem is still up in the air, and it's most fascinating. As far as where Jesus might have went to school, what he'd been taught, the conditions of the time period, what was going on politically, it's all at Yeshua Quest. And so instead of bungling up information, I'm just going to send viewers there, and at your own leisure, you can check out some of those topics. Also, there's a topic on, I already said, his education, what Yeshua meant by born again, and Yeshua, one with the Father, Yeshua, false, failed, or fervent Messiah. You can check that link out. There's some more on Yeshua, the carpenter's son, growing up in Galilee, and Yeshua on marriage and divorce, and some of the political wranglings that were happening. So, if you get time, check out some of these topics. I myself have written a few essays on there, but S. Madewell has done a great job as a lay scholar on composing some of this, and he's not a part of any religious group, but just working through some issues on topics of finding the historical Jesus. And I've been most fascinated by this site, and I met him through YouTube, and he has a lot of information. So I'm going to be posting links to that, and then we'll be moving on into some of the Gospels, which I know more about. So take care, YouTubers. Take care of yourself and each other.